I think the most amazing development in our field has been the ability to peer into sort of the mystery of embryos and what used to be just a pageant of cells dividing and organs forming and a whole creature taking shape, to actually see the chemical changes that are taking place in those animals long before you can see the visible changes, and therefore to be able to unpack the secrets of how we're made. I think the most promising avenues for future work in the field are all opened up by our ability now to essentially study any creature on the planet. When I started out in biology, there were 6 or 8 species that were most commonly used in labs, mice and rats and maybe chickens and fruit flies and things like that. But especially what's happened with sequencing of genomes and tools to manipulate genes, any creature is open to experimental investigation, and that makes the whole world of biodiversity accessible. I think the biggest challenge facing science in the next decade is kind of, I'm going to say this another way. I think the biggest challenge facing science in the next decade is getting out above the noise and making it very clear that, in fact, the biosphere is in jeopardy, that the degradation of ecosystems around the world is going to have profound effects on humans. And it's not just climate change. We don't want to get stuck in that traffic jam alone. There's a lot more to it. And the sense of urgency, but the sense of possibility, there is still time to change the road we're on, needs to be conveyed loud and clear. Well, I certainly, as a little kid, I had some inclinations. I liked creatures. I especially liked snakes and frogs and stuff like that. And I'd catch them and keep them, kept them for years and years as a kid. And I was just fascinated with their behavior. I loved their patterns. I thought maybe I'd be like a zookeeper until I realized that would be mostly shoveling. And I had to kind of go to college to realize there was a little more sophisticated approach to things, and that we could learn about how these animals are made and how they've evolved. And so it was a sprinkling of inspiration from various places, including just watching early nature shows as a kid in black and white TV in Toledo, Ohio, where there was no nature. Yeah, I think laboratory research, where you don't know what you're going to find and where, it really tests your temperament. You can go long periods not knowing whether you're even on the path to finding anything out. So you don't know whether you're in some absolutely empty hole, or it's just a matter of time. And since that can run, in my own experience, as long as say a year and a half or two, in stages of your career where you only have 2 or 3 years to produce results, I think that tests your resolve. It tests your temperament. All researchers essentially that I know have a sense of delayed gratification. They know they're in it for the long run. They don't know when those rewards are going to come. They can stick with it. If you're not wired that way, this would be a very, very difficult career path. The advice I have for young scientists is, follow your loves. There may be at any given time, advice on what fields are fertile or things like this, but generally that advice is kind of late. If by the time everybody can see where the action is, it's probably too late. You got to sort of learn to be a little bit ahead of the action, and you'll develop that taste and instinct over time. But you won't necessarily have a lot of people going, yeah, you're right, because again, by the time you're shown to be right, it'll be way late in the game. So you have to kind of believe in your convictions and take some risks. And I think without taking risks, it's hard to say, that I think it's just a lot more rewarding if you're willing to take some risks and go where you think you should be and not necessarily where everyone else tells you should be. The go-to tip for science communication is tell a story. I wish somebody had told me this a lot of years ago. Everything's about storytelling. Whether it's talking to other scientists, whether it's talking to public, whether it's writing scientific papers, in your teaching, always tell a story. And that, what is a story? It means there's events are connected. It means there's characters perhaps in it. There's surprise, there's humor, there may be tragedy, there may be whatever. But tell a story. And science is a story. It's almost all science does sort of fit into the genre of detective story. I'm asking a question, I don't know the answer, I'm going to try to find out. My hunches are usually wrong, I get surprised, and bam comes the clue that sets me on the right path. That story tells itself again and again and again across science.